the key story there that actually leads me to how we should be preparing and developing our managers for the future was once in my office. I was the president and Institute Senior Fellow of Malaysia Blue Ocean Strategy Institute, and my South Korean friend came to me, Associate Dean, came to me and said, "Hey Pablo, I have something to tell you. I have a little question, little Asian question to you. I have seen you here for 3 or 4 months, and it's something that really amazes me. Why do you operate only in 3 modes?" Meaning psychological modes. And when he said that, I was terrified. Because, I'm the product of American business education. So 3 modes is 2 more than they would allow, Because it's non-transparent, because it's not principled, because it's almost unethical, and so on and so on. So I was like, I almost kind of squeezed myself and I said, "Oh my God, 3 modes." And then he said, No, that's not what I mean. What I mean here in Asia, you need to have 8 or 10 modes. Why only 3? So see, with the government, he should be, acting like this. With Professor Kim, who of course was harassing all of us, you should carry his bag. To the subordinates, you should be acting in a completely different way. So nothing immoral, nothing unethical, and yet a lot of flexibility. And that's, how I started to train myself too, into this flexible ways of dealing in a multinational environment. That's what we all have. That's what we have in this room, in actually this forum. Many nations, many countries, many continents, many cultures, and you'll have more and more and more like this in the future. And yet we have still, sorry to say, the kind of Anglo-Saxon or American approach to management education. I'm sure in the 3 or 4 or 5 years it will be Russian model, it will be Chinese model, it will be the Indian model, American model will still stay, and we need to be flexible between all of them, choosing the best pieces or the most appropriate pieces for this particular situation. Chinese do not listen to any kind of strategy, even including blue ocean strategy. Why? Because they have this book written thousands of years ago, The Art of War by Sun Tzu. And Sun Tzu says, there are 3 qualities of the good general. One is a fighter, which is kind of clear. One is a thinker, which is even more clear because that's what we get from American model of management education. We get the thinkers, analytical thinkers, with all the advantages and drawbacks that we have already discussed here. And the third was a farmer. You need to be the farmer. Now, I was confused. Why the farmer? Fighter and thinker clear, why the farmer? So I approached the guy. And I said, why the farmer? Is that because of diligence? Because of planning? You need to plan, you have to be diligent, like on the rice pad. And he says, yes, a bit, but that's not the most important. And then he says, in your language, and he meant Latin, in your language, think about this. Humus and humility have the same root. Humus, the ground, the land, and humility is the same root. So in order to be a good general, you need a lot of humility. And it's something, by the way, we are very good in Eastern Europe, as I must say. And Dr. Adiz is talking about this all the time too. Our products from business schools are just too snobbish, are just too arrogant. They are just too full of themselves. And that is the problem. So how to make them more humble so that they can listen to the customers, to the clients, to their employees, to their team members, and so on and so on. So finally, just a little story about my older daughter. She studies in the international school, which is American international school, of course. And one Saturday she comes back and says, we had this Ukrainian language class today. She's Ukrainian, of course. She comes and says, they had this Ukrainian teacher. She's so strange, by the way. She makes us stand up when she enters, and she's really pushy, and she's crying and yelling at us. And what is this? And she's behaving in not in American way. I say, wait a minute. Whom am I hearing this from? An American You're a great, a big American. You're not American, my darling. You're still Ukrainian. So deal with her. Deal with her. Deal with her in Ukrainian way. But deal with Americans in American way, in American school. Now she learns Mandarin, and she has the Chinese, and she has a Chinese teacher who really squeezes her out. And said, be smart enough to deal with the Chinese teacher in Chinese way. I think this is probably the key skill that I will take for the 21st century in BRICS countries. How do we develop this mental flexibility, yet preserving and keeping our moral and ethical principles? Thank you.